Hi, I'm Bryce Knorr, grain market analyst for Farm Futures Magazine, farmfutures.com. Today I'd like to talk about USDA's September 30th reports. These numbers include September 1st grain stocks and the small grain summary. They aren't the easiest of USDA's releases to understand, but sometimes they have a big impact on the market. So I'd like to break down how we make our estimates and what USDA's tally could mean for prices. My estimate for September 1st wheat inventories is 2.245 billion bushels, nearly 200 million bushels, below the average guess from the analyst surveyed by Bloomberg. But that's still nearly 150 million bushels more than a year ago. USDA's estimates for corn and soybeans represent ending stocks for the 2015 crop marketing year. I don't see much change for corn compared to the government's August crop report. Again, I'm on the low side of the trade, which is 42 million bushels higher than my guess. USDA cut its forecast of September 1st soybean stocks by 60 million bushels on September 12th to 195 million. I think Friday's report could go slightly higher, but I'm close to the average guess from the trade, though there's almost a 100 bushel swing between the high and the low end of those forecasts. The other numbers out Friday the trade will parse are an update of 2016 crop wheat production. I think the crop could be around 22 million bushels smaller than the last estimate, coming in just below 2.3 billion bushels. That's the lowest estimate in the trade, which on average sees little change from USDA. So what do these numbers mean? To understand them, let's take a look at the math. For these quarterly estimates, we start with USDA's forecast of June 1st inventory. In the case of corn, that was 4.722 billion bushels. Add in imports of 10 million bushels, and I think the total supply available during the quarter was 4.733 billion bushels. From that starting point, we subtract demand. Some of the corn demand is pretty well known. The government reports corn usage for ethanol monthly, though the August numbers aren't out yet. Weekly data on production at biofuel plants gives us a pretty good idea of how much corn was used. Food, seed, and other industrial uses don't change a lot from quarter to quarter, so that's also easy to pin down. Exports are reported monthly by the Census Bureau. Like ethanol, the August totals aren't out yet for the last month of the marketing year, but weekly export inspections give us a pretty good idea when adjusted for differences between the two data sets. The big unknown is feed and residual usage. This is the amount of corn that's presumably fed to livestock, which can't be independently measured. It can also reflect corrections from sampling error in other reports. Remember, USDA isn't counting every kernel of corn, but relying on estimates from merchandisers and farmers it surveys. This year's usage could be affected by increased feeding of wheat, which might produce a bearish surprise, lowering corn livestock feeding. Otherwise, it appears around 3.02 billion bushels of corn were used during the quarter or disappeared. That would leave 1.712 billion bushels left over. For soybeans, USDA put June 1st stocks in its last quarterly report at 869 million bushels. With 6 million bushels of imports, total supplies would be 874 million. Crush, exports, and seed usage, like demand for corn, are fairly well known. The unknown is again residual usage. You'll note the number here is negative. That's not a mistake. USDA often overestimates quarterly residual usage early in the marketing year, then adjusts it lower later. This year that reduction should run around 73 million bushels, leaving ending stocks at 199 million. Sometimes this correction is much larger than expected because USDA assumes the crop was bigger or smaller than its last estimate in January. That could be the wild card in the September 30th report, though previous quarterly stocks didn't suggest big changes. The residual use category is also why there's such a big range of estimate for wheat stocks. I put total supplies at 3.313 billion bushels, with my production estimate a little lower than the trade. Food, seed, and exports are again fairly well known, but USDA's estimate of wheat feeding over the summer varies widely due to reductions in residual usage made in later quarters. I'm putting it at a very large 556 million bushels based on historical trends. Yet whatever the number is that USDA comes up with, it's not likely to change total feed usage much for the entire year, so a surprise from the government September 30th may really not mean much when all is said and done. USDA uses these September 30th numbers to update its next monthly supply and demand reports due October 12th. That's when we'll get a better explanation of just what government economists think the data means. The market, of course, will let us know immediately what it thinks right after the numbers come out at 11 a.m. Central Time on Friday. We'll be there to let you know what we think, too. For Farm Futures, this is Bryce Knorr reporting.